It is App Wars today on the Tech Ranch co-founder.
App Wars.
Yeah.
Oh, you caught me flat-footed. Don't have the music ready. I'll get it up later.
You know, I suppose sometimes you and I should probably talk before the show, Jim.
Yeah.
It would probably be
Well,
good
you know,
for
that
the
new
show.
Star Wars movie, that spin-off movie, whatever they're calling it, is coming out this week. Rogue One.
Yeah. Are you a Star Wars fan?
Not so much. I'm more of a Trek person than a Star Wars person. But you stick a ticket in my hand to a Star Wars movie, I'll certainly take advantage of it.
Sure. Of course, everybody. This is Jim Walsh, producer
Hello.
extraordinaire. So are you? I'm actually more excited about this Star Wars movie than I have been for the last 3 of them or so.
I'm interested to see what they do with it because the expectations are a little bit different for something like this.
Yep.
It's not part of the main canon of Star Wars mythology. Therefore, you figure they have a little... First of all, the pressure's off.
Right.
They don't have the pressure to make a blockbuster.
Which we all know it will be anyway.
Well, probably. But in terms of quality, you're thinking, well, it frees you up, to not have that expectation.
Exactly.
It frees you up. Maybe it'll be something different, something a little quirky, something, I don't know.
Yep.
Offbeat.
And sitting to the right of me here, a gentleman who just literally slid into his chair.
He slid right in.
Greg Tavine, co-founder of Emerging Prairie. How you doing, man?
Hey, thanks, Marlo.
How's the driving?
Hey, Fargo to Jamestown was a little rough, but as always, Jamestown into Mandan was smooth sailing. So it's good to be here.
And, of course, I was standing out front as you slid through the intersection to try to make it in here.
My Subaru Crosstrek brakes got their workout in this morning, but we made it.
So are you a Star Wars fan?
No, I didn't really grow up watching a lot of those movies. Don't really have much understanding or knowledge at all.
So not excited about the movie coming out this week?
Indifferent. I think it's always fun when folks get excited about it. There's obviously an incredible tribe around Star Wars, which I'm really intrigued by and fascinated.
He's being very trendy, you notice, by the way. He used the T word.
I know.
Thank you, Seth.
But
wherever you are.
Yes. Well, I did read that book. But I also, it's intriguing to me, and what I maybe get most excited about is seeing all the clips and the Facebook posts of the people that are just into this. And I really appreciate when people are into niche things or kind of counterculture things in Star Wars. Obviously, has a bunch of folks that love it, appreciate it, and I think it's fascinating.
I will say, I'm, again, more excited about this one than any of them. I'm not going to be there on Thursday night to watch it. I'll wait until it slows down a little bit, I'm sure. But what I find fascinating is I've been watching the Star Wars pranks. I don't know. It just, I think a lot of people
Pranks?
get into, if you go into
Are people printing
YouTube,
false news about what supposedly happens?
No, it's just YouTube stuff. And they'll have like the stormtroopers. There's this one with this Ewok that runs around the corner with a lightsaber, and somebody's just walking down this alleyway at the same time.
Yeah.
The Ewok hands off the lightsaber, right? And this person's like looking at this thing as the Ewok is running away in terror. And as this person's looking at this, around the corner come about 100 stormtroopers. And it's just a standoff of this person looking at these stormtroopers. And all of a sudden they bring their weapons forward, and most of them start running. It is absolutely hilarious because, you're thinking to yourself, I'm sure these people are thinking to themselves, this cannot be real. But maybe it is.
Well, you guys mentioned something very, very significant, I think. The whole notion of Star Wars as cultural phenomenon is interesting in and of itself. I read a book years ago by Bill Goldman, the screenwriter. He wrote Misery, he wrote Butch Cassidy, All the President's Men, a bunch of great movies. And he said when he went to the first Star Wars movie, he was already well into middle age. He was our age, probably. And he said he wasn't that big on the movie, but he loved the audience reaction to it.
Sure.
I've had that experience in several movies, and to me the best movies, for my experience, are the ones that generate that kind of electricity in the audience. The first time I saw the movie MASH, the movie version, 1971, it was fantastic.
Yep.
People were totally into it. And it was that kind of thing when Superman, the original with Christopher Reeve, came out. It had that kind of and, of course, the Star Wars movies. The original ones.
I would say the only other movie I've ever gone to that had that kind of reaction, outside of Star Trek, if you go to the first night of Star Trek, you'll have that reaction, too.
The first night you have all the hardcore Trekkies.
You do, and people dress up for it and stuff, so it's kind of fun, too. But did you ever see Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yes. Not in the theater, though.
Oh, okay.
Not in the theater.
If you go to the theater, I think I went to it like 5 times in the theater. It's the only movie I've ever gone to that many times when it was on first release, right? Because I always waited for when Clooney got up there to sing the song, and he has no clue why this song is so popular, right? Yeah. And even the whole audience, the people who are watching the movie, get a kick out of that, I thought. Yeah. So I don't know. How about you, Greg? Anything that,
of constant sorrow.
Exactly.
No, I'm not a movie guy.
Okay.
Okay.
But I just did discover 24, the TV show, and I've been totally binging out on it. I'm on season 5. We started about 3 weeks ago, so you see.
Oh my goodness! No wonder you have bags under your
eyes. Yeah, I did watch a couple episodes last night, but I grew up just in a time of my life where I didn't have TV in college, didn't have it as an adult, couldn't afford cable, and just discovering television and movies now.
Okay, well, very good. So. Anyway, Greg is here. We're going to talk a little bit about Emerging Prairie, of course. We're going to do a little version of App Wars.
So
I have the top apps of 2016 right here on the counter. Whoa. That actually echoes a little bit.
Kind of reverberated in my headphones there.
And, of course, Greg is going to share with us some of his apps, his favorite apps. We're just going to see how they compare against the most popular apps of the year as well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Emerging Prairie again?
Emerging Prairie exists to connect and celebrate the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We do a lot of our events and activities in Fargo, North Dakota, but we seem to be influencing the broader region. We do some conferences. You and I have worked together in our CART Summit, which is an e-commerce conference, doing a lot of work in the drone industry, and we love TEDx. So TEDx Fargo is one of the largest TEDx events in the country. Last year we had 1,800 people there. Our talks have been viewed close to 1.2 million times, and so our work is making a big impact locally, but it's kind of rippling out throughout the country.
So you actually attend a few other summits, events, whatever, across the country, and they're bringing you in now because they want to duplicate what's going on in Fargo, right?
Yeah, I think Fargo has benefited greatly from collaboration, whether it's our research and technology park, working with larger organizations like Aparia or Border States, and then early stage startups. And that combination, that collaboration is catching people by surprise. So early next week, I'll be in Boulder, Colorado, working with an organization there. We're getting partnerships with folks in smaller communities like Appleton, Wisconsin, or Topeka, Kansas, and they're trying to replicate what we've learned in Fargo.
So where do they find more information out about Emerging Prairie?
Well, Emerging Prairie is online at emergingprairie.com, and actually I have no idea how they found out about it. We're not a great marketing organization, but we try to do world-class work, and when folks come to visit Fargo, we try to welcome them. Was in touch with a woman in Madison, Wisconsin this morning, and she came to Fargo to explore our startup community, and now we have a relationship, and so she's reaching back out and saying, hey, we need some help, and we're happy to do so.
All right, after the break, everybody, Greg, Jim, and I, App Wars.
Bring it!
Right now for Above.
News headlines and weather together, live on Super Talk 1270.
Follow the Guru of Geek at Facebook.com/The Tech Ranch or Twitter at Guru of Geek or TheTechRanch.com. Here again is your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
And we want to thank all of our listeners who follow us on the Blueberry Network.
All across the galaxy.
We're on the iTunes. We're on the interweb.
Like some old lady.
Yes.
Hey, I heard that Christian song on the iTunes.
On the iTunes,
it's very nice.
Yeah. Or the Facebook. I love that when people refer to it as
that's
the
my
Facebook.
dad. You know, he's got me doing it now. I tell him, tell my brother that I got a message for him on the Facebook.
Okay. And you know what's funny about that? We laugh about that, but that's what it was called originally.
Yeah.
They dropped the, and that became the big deal. So, yeah. Yep. Yeah, and of course, the Tech Podcast Network. We're on Tuned In, and of course, our own app, Radio Pup. All kinds of places you can join us live or listen to us later because there's all kinds of great information on the show.
We're not appointment listening necessarily.
That's exactly
we like
right.
when you listen live.
But we like it when you listen at any time.
There's a buzz in the air.
Exactly.
But we are on-demand listening.
I love it.
We give you freedom of choice.
Joining us from Emerging Prairie over in Fargo, North Dakota. Actually, he's in studio, though, with us, Mr. Greg Devine.
Mr. Greg, you're the man, sir.
We are going to have our version of App Wars. So what this means, basically, is we try to outdo each other with apps. And so I'm going to just mention of the top, I have the top 30 apps of 2016 right here. And so Greg and Jim, too, you know, you guys can come up with
grab
maybe
my phone.
apps that you have or that you know of, maybe you have some friends that know these apps too, that you think are maybe better or equivalent or similar or whatever, okay?
Why don't we throw it out to the public too, the folks who want to call in at 701-663-1270. We'll give that number out again. Let's do it now. 701-663-1270.
We haven't opened up the phone lines in like forever on this show.
Many moons.
So
it's a sign of a bad guest. Sorry about that.
No. Come on now. Come on.
Too funny, Greg. So the first one I have on my list is Venmo. Are you familiar with Venmo?
Venmo?
Yes, Venmo. So it's an app that basically you don't have to carry cash with you anymore. So you go out to dinner or whatever, and you guys all want to go Dutch on a check. You guys can split the bill up accordingly, and it'll pay everybody from that. So I'm not a user of this, but do you use your phone at all, Greg, to make any purchases?
Yeah, so I used it a lot, and I used a similar app called Dwala, which was a payments based out of Des Moines, Iowa, but they just closed down their app last week, so I'm going to just say Venmo is better than my favorite app in the space, Dwala, because Dwala's just going to use their services for API.
I didn't know that.
And so they're going more white label modeled. So it's this is helpful for me because I needed an app to solve this problem. I, for some reason, just don't like PayPal, and so I needed this solution. So this is a benefit for me personally. So thank you for solving a personal need.
So Dwala actually started in South Dakota, did they not?
Des Moines, Iowa.
They are out of Des Moines.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ben Milne, fantastic founder, one of my favorite founders, and actually Myriad Mobile out of Fargo built their app. But
That's right.
They're evolving their process, and I think they're going into more data processing with big banks and larger organizations.
Yep. Very, very cool. Okay. Jim, do you use your phone to pay for anything at all?
Not current. Well, my wife has a thing set up on hers for like our bank, through which we pay a lot of our bills. We pay them directly out of our bank account. And we have Starion. I guess I can mention the name of the bank. That's cool. And we have the Starion app, and it has served us well.
Good.
Now, I understand Wells Fargo has an app. I cannot speak for it. I've never used it, but they do have one.
I think
most of your major banks do now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but you've never used like an Android Pay or Apple Pay, either of you?
I've just used Dwala.
Okay.
Not
Jim?
really.
Okay.
Not that I wouldn't. I mean, I would certainly try it.
I think one of the challenges we have in our area is that we might be a little behind the times with some of our businesses.
Sure.
If we go to a San Francisco or New York or whatever, I'd say half the businesses probably accept Apple Pay or Android Pay.
Really?
Right?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's a big deal.
Well,
but
we're kind of
it's
we're
a little isolated with that stuff, yeah.
The whole thing, again, is we're geographically isolated. I think if we were a little closer to one of the major metros like the Twin Cities, as is Fargo, we'd probably be a little more up on the curve on this, but that's not a put down. It'll come around.
Sure. All right, next up is messages. So iPhone, of course, and I see that Greg is an iPhone user. Of course, they had a brand new overhaul in their iOS this year with messages. So now you can text with emojis and everything else. So, do you use the default iPhone messaging system, or do you use something else?
Confession. I am not upgrading my system. I have refused. I get a notice every single day, multiple times a day from Apple trying to get me to upload to their current system. I like the old one. I've heard bad things about the update, so I'm just holding out.
Very interesting.
Yes.
So you still use the default.
Yeah, I use the default.
Okay.
I haven't added anything else.
You're not using a WhatsApp or whatever.
No, I'm old school. My whole team is on Apple, so we just use the iOS system.
Okay, cool. Jim, how about you? What do you use for texting for messaging?
For texting, well, I have the standard texting feature I get from Verizon, and I do 99% of my texting really on Facebook.
Okay.
Through the Facebook text system.
So you're using Facebook Messenger. And
yes,
in fact, you
Facebook
and I,
Messenger.
That's generally how you and I communicate.
Generally, that's, especially on Monday morning, if you have an issue getting here, or I have an issue getting here.
Sure.
Generally, rule of thumb is to check it around, 10:30 in the morning, see if there's a problem.
Interesting. Okay, very good. Next up on the list is Snapchat. So, of course, Snapchat's been around since 2011. First came out, and you could snap a photo, send it to whoever you liked, and 10 seconds later, it was gone. So it was a very interesting app for teenagers, young adults, and that's kind of how it got started, of course. Now it's becoming its own business model. You see a lot of businesses that are using it to promote their products, that type of thing. Greg, are you a Snapchat user?
I used it. I tried it. I didn't like it.
Okay.
I erased it. It just felt uncomfortable. I didn't really. I'm 32 years old. I was an early adopter of Facebook. I like Facebook. I like Twitter. I just didn't see the unique value of Snapchat.
I didn't. I'm kind of with you too. I mean, when it was really popular right away, when it first came out, it was immensely popular. It just was huge, right? But I'm like, it takes me 10 seconds to focus in on the phone, and then the photo somebody sent me is gone.
Yeah, and it created anxiety for me as I'm watching it tick down, and I got uncomfortable. But I'm impressed with the company, right? I mean, they've changed their name. I think it's just Snap now. I believe they're getting ready for IPO.
Yep.
Like, this is a company that was built, I believe, by Stanford fraternity brothers.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And they built something special, and I think they have a lot to be proud of.
Absolutely.
It's pioneering video, right? I mean, they're going into video. I think they're changing the way Facebook Live has worked. I know other organizations have tried to copy it. Flipgrid, VidQ, kind of Twin Cities-based startup. I think it's fascinating. I think they're an organization to watch as well.
Right, I agree with that. So, Jim?
I'm kind of the same way, though. I couldn't use Snapchat if you stuck a gun to my head. I have no idea. I think it's great that we have these options, but just the idea of having you put a photo there and just let it sit there for a couple of minutes and then poof, right?
So
that's how it works?
Yeah, that's exactly. Well, not so much anymore. I mean, you still have that option, but a lot of it now, you have this daily timeline thing. So all the photos you take in a day can be put in a timeline that anybody can see. So it's like a daily blog, I guess you could say, of photos if you want it to be. So
well, I have photos. Again, I use Facebook primarily.
Okay.
And once I got hooked on Facebook, that was it. I didn't need anything else.
Sure.
At this point, especially given my advanced age, where's the geezer? But given my advanced age, it would have to be something would really have to knock my socks off at this point to get me to switch over.
So you're using Facebook to share photos and things as well?
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. I am the same way. I guess I throw Twitter in there a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Twitter is more of my communication tool, I guess. I know you and I, Greg, we communicate a lot on Twitter. You know, Jim and I guess we do Facebook. That's what drives me nuts, by the way. Maybe it's just the position I'm in, and everybody thinks that because I am who I am, meaning in technology, right? They all think that I'm good at all of this stuff. So
you're not.
I have to, Instagram is another one. I mean, I get all this stuff through Instagram all the time. I have no clue how to use Instagram. But, you can't keep up with all of this stuff, but people expect to be able to message me in all these different formats. So I feel like I had to keep my phone. Of course, my phone lasts 3 hours on a battery charge because I got all these apps open all the time so people can communicate with me.
Well, it's a generational thing.
It is a generational
to a great
thing.
extent.
I agree.
You go to your younger guys; they go for that stuff.
So, but I guess what I'm kind of saying is I really miss the day when we had a phone number, one way to communicate. And this is just kind of a challenge. But if somebody could actually take all of these ways to communicate and throw them into one app, so that if you're an Instagram person and I'm a Facebook person, that we could still communicate with each other. There's got to be a way to do that. You
know how old I am? I actually remember the days when phone exchanges had names instead of numbers at the front.
Yes.
Olympia 59 whatever.
I know. I love that.
Just dial Wyman 7 whatever. I remember that's going back to the 60s.
So, have you ever tried to dial a phone number with a word?
Great.
We're talking generational here. So, where you try to, the best, instead of dialing 555-1212, for example.
I have. Like, I think I know what you're talking about. It's like, hey, call us at 1270 tacos.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, so I totally get it. But I just find this type of communication fascinating. So for my life, I recently got married, and my wife and I want to turn our phones off at the end of the day. Sure. And we feel like it's our emergency number as well. So we've had many conversations about getting a landline. Like, I believe landlines will come back because it could revert to the simplest form of technology, which if we're friends, which we are, then you have my landline number.
Right.
So at the end of the night, if you need to get a hold of me because of an emergency, you know how to get a hold of me.
As long as it's not a telemarketer.
Right.
But maybe there's a way that those numbers aren't on lists anymore, right? If we get a new landline number, it avoids all those types of baggage, and then it's a simplest way for mom and dad, close friends to get a hold of us.
There are actually options for that. We'll talk about that after the break, everybody.
All right.
Hang in there.
Right now for Above.
We're back to the Tech Ranch. Stream this program now at supertalk1270.com. Here is your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars. Give me the Star Wars. Don't let them end.
Wars, nothing but that.
Well, we're doing all this because of the Rogue One.
Yes.
Star Wars story coming out in just a couple of days.
Yeah.
And I'm sure theaters will be packed for weeks for that.
I sure hope so. I like a little excitement, a little pop culture excitement. You know, we just had this sucky election, and I'm not talking necessarily about who got elected, but it was just the whole affair was just a real downer,
yeah.
You know, given the choices we had, and the whole atmosphere got pretty ugly at times. It's still getting ugly out there, and I think we need we need a Beatles moment. We need that post-JFK boost that the Beatles gave us, and this could be it.
Oh, my goodness. You're putting a lot of pressure on I think Disney bought Star Wars, so you're putting a lot of pressure on Disney now.
I'm incredibly overeducated. What can I tell you?
Well, maybe, and I hope you're right. I hope that people get their minds off of all the,
I know Christmas is coming up, but that helps, certainly.
Well, but it is the most depressing time of the year, too.
It is for a lot of people.
For a lot of people, it is. So maybe a movie coming out will lighten people's spirits.
I hope so. I sincerely hope so.
Yep. All right, so next, we're doing App Wars today. Mr. Greg Devine is here from Emergent Prairie in Fargo, North Dakota. And we're just kind of going through the top apps of 2016. And Greg and Jim then will be weighing in on these if they have something similar, if they have the same. So another top app of 2016 is Pokemon Go.
Love it.
Yeah.
You use it.
Not a user, but a follower, a fan. So here's where I'm at. I love downtowns.
Okay.
And when this app came out, I would drive around downtown Fargo late into the evening and see people playing. These are people that I've never seen in my downtown, never seen in my community before, and I love it. It's social interaction, it's energy, it's physical activity. Huge fan.
So I know when I was in Fargo a couple months ago, and it was a nice evening, and I was in the Prairie Den looking out over the street, and I'm like, what are all those people just wandering around Main Street for? And they were just on their phones, just doing something. I didn't realize till later that they were playing Pokemon.
Yeah, we have friends in the space that have built T-shirt companies around it. They're selling T-shirts with the different teams. I have friends that were real enthusiasts playing during the day, work day, and their offices were right next to some stops. Really impressed. I think it's a social phenomenon. We got to say thank you to the innovators that actually bet big on this one. I think it's one that introduced real-time playing, physical activity, got a bunch of people out of their homes. Incredibly impressed.
I think so too. How about you, Jim?
Well, again, I'm with Greg. I'm totally about with the audience response, the reaction of the public at large to this kind of thing. Just a lot of people out there having fun and doing something a little crazy and a little different. What I'm wondering is how it's going to play next time around, because good and well there's going to be a Pokemon Go 2 coming at some point.
Sure. Have you noticed, Greg, maybe even in Fargo, that has the excitement wore off, or are there still people playing it like crazy over there?
So I was talking to my friend Jake Cole, fantastic guy, I love this guy, and he was sharing with me that it's definitely calmed down, but Pokemon Go knows what they're doing, so they can introduce new lures, they can introduce new activities, and they can get a little mini surge. They're paying attention, so I think people are still plugged in. It's not quite the intensity right now.
Oh, no.
But watch it. It's one to watch, and it's one that I'm incredibly intrigued by.
I really like the fact that it is getting people outside. I just, and doing things, because up to this point, I mean, we're all sedentary at home playing games. I mean, if you're in the gaming thing, so
not just kids. I mean, older folks.
Oh yeah,
a lot of kids with their grandparents going out looking for this stuff.
That's why I was really excited when Gestures first came out, so that you can get in front of your screen and start dancing and doing things. I thought that was incredibly exciting. This just takes that to a whole other level. It really does.
Definitely one to watch.
So, and I forgot right before the break, we talked about we were talking about phones and communications. And Greg, you were actually talking about that you're thinking about going back to a landline. Why don't you explain to everybody why you're thinking about that?
Recently married, my wife and I both try to keep our phones off in the evening. We're trying to be present with one another, but the reason that we kind of struggle is because we don't have mom or dad or friends to have the ability to call us at night. So we want old school landline where mom and dad, friends can call with an emergency or more social things. Our phones are devices for professional environments. We're both entrepreneurs, and so that's kind of why we want an emergency call-in number, a social place where only friends and family get that number.
Okay, Jim, do you have Do you have a landline anymore?
I will say that in terms of quality, even today, because things have gotten a lot better with the cell phones, but in terms of consistent quality, nothing beats a good landline signal.
Sure.
Nothing.
And you do still have a landline?
Well, we don't. No.
Okay.
Mainly because we didn't really need one.
Right.
You know, our family calls us on the cell phone, no problem there. The main thing is we got rid of all the telemarketers.
Right.
Now, that was back before the whole thing with the list came out.
Yep.
But we've never really missed it, but I always thought it'd be nice to at least have one to fall back on, just in case there's some kind of emergency and the cells go down or whatever. It does happen from time to time, like weather situations like the one we just had here in town last week. You never know. And again, in terms of the consistency of the signal, the sound quality, did you know that a lot of radio stations still insist that their interviews, the people calling in for contests, whatnot, they kind of insist, if at all possible, use a landline when you call in. Well,
that's what we insist for here.
I mean, you've heard it's happened to us a couple of times where folks, not through any fault of theirs, but they just having issues with their cells. You get them on the line, it's like, "Hi, Marlo," like that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So there's a solution to this, by the way. So faced with the same dilemma. You know, the one thing that maybe my wife and I had an issue with, and more so Alice than myself, is that we've had the same phone number for 30 plus years. Right? And there are family and friends. The only way they know how to get a hold of us is through this phone number. Now, most of the time it was telemarketers, but I also had this problem paying $30, $40, $50 a month for a phone that maybe would ring twice a year. I mean, I felt that's how bad it was.
Sure.
Outside of the fact that we get the telemarketers were calling like crazy. So I was introduced to a company called Ooma a couple of years ago, OOMA, and it's a device that you can purchase for about $150. So it depends on which one you get. I think you can get them down to about $100, $150. You can probably shop on eBay and find them for whatever. And they might even have them in some of the bigger box stores now or whatever. So anyway, you go and you install this device, and it hooks up to your Wi-Fi or your wired internet that you have. And you plug a regular phone into it then. So if you have a cordless phone you want to carry around the house, I know, Greg, you'll probably have to go out and actually purchase a phone to make this happen, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't have, like you were saying, you have no hardware. So, but yeah, you go out and purchase this. And then for us, we were able to port our old phone number over to this. So everybody still has our regular phone number. And what I love about Ooma, okay, so it's $150. Now, we pay the taxes on it, so we get 911 service. But that is an optional thing. You don't have to pay it, and you never have to pay for your phone number ever again if you don't want to. Okay, which is what's wonderful about the Ooma. The other thing that's wonderful is they have a blacklist. So if you're a telemarketer and you call and there's actually a hot number on the Ooma, after this phone call comes in, you can push that hot number, and after so many instances of that happening, that number is now blacklisted. So we almost get no telemarketing calls anymore on that number. Now, during the election season, because that was a little different because these numbers were new to the system. But generally speaking, I can't tell you the last time that phone actually called with the telemarketer on it because they just don't go through. They block them. So it's fantastic.
I would love to meet the team that developed that product. Yeah. They obviously understood their customer. They listened to feedback, and they solved a real problem. I'm impressed.
Yeah, it's really, really, really very cool. It really is.
I'd love to talk sometime about the kind of training you have to get into that line of work. Because obviously a lot of people are doing very well with it. But how do you go to school for something like that? Or I honestly don't know.
Well, I suppose coding school would be a start.
What school?
Coding.
Coding school.
CODING, which I think Greg is actually working on putting one together in Fargo.
Well, you don't have to be, we're not talking MIT necessarily. Or
no, not at all. A lot of times in 4 to 6 weeks, if you applied yourself, you could learn at least a pretty basic understanding of any type of computer language.
Well, I know about the A+ certification.
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know it's pretty intense. So there's a fellow, Dan Durkee, in town here who used to teach that course, for whatever amount of money. And it's like a crash course, in 3 days. They run all this stuff through, and it's like a college course, something you expect to get credits for. But by the end of that course, if you stick with it, you'll have it down. You'll
Sure.
know what you need to know.
Sure.
You know, I went out to Stanford for a couple of weeks and took one of their executive programs, and we spent some time at the design school, which was a lot of thinking about who is the user and what is their need, and how do you simplify that? How do you understand? And it was a lot of appreciative inquiry, and I found it to be one of the greatest sessions in our time at Stanford.
You know, a lot of times, Jim, too, you know, if you just have an idea, it's just a matter of, you know, maybe knowing somebody like Greg that would move you in that
Finding
direction.
somebody with
a
a technical know-how.
That's right, because a lot,
you know,
the person who came up with Ooma, I'm going to guarantee you, didn't have the technical know-how to probably put it together. Just knew the vision. You have people who are visionaries. You have people who can, you know, take that vision and create something from it.
Well, yeah,
So,
you need somebody to market the idea, which is a whole different set of skills
that's
from
correct.
actually putting the thing
Yeah.
together. It's like having an engineer at your radio station.
You will almost never have all that in the same person, you know.
Yeah.
So that's you know, kind of where you have to go with that. So,
Even
yes.
Barnum needed Bailey.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So next one on my list. Well, we're getting way off topic. Any other questions on that, by the way? Hearing none, we will move forward. I'm just going to skip over some of these. WhatsApp, we kind of talked about texting and things already. NPR1. Anybody? Well, this is interesting, actually. Do you have an FM receiver or AM receiver on your phone that you use?
I use Overcast FM, and most of that is to grab podcasts. So it allows me to subscribe to podcasts that I appreciate, and it'll just when I turn it connected to the internet, it downloads them all. So the answer is no, but I still use a media app to grab the information I want for post recording.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about
Yeah, can
how
we follow up on that when we come back?
Because I think people want to know how they use their cell phone as an AM FM. So come on back, everybody.
Right now, 3 above.
Follow the Guru of Geek everywhere he goes. Post your comments or questions at thetechranch.com. Once again, your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars.
Thank you.
Yes, another edition of App Wars. Greg Tavine from Virgin Prairie, Jim Walsh from here, Super Talk 1270, and myself going through some App Wars stuff. And we were just right before the break, got into FM radio. Who has an FM radio app? So,
well, supposedly all the phones have the FM chips.
That's
right?
correct.
Yeah.
Well, all the new ones do anyway.
New ones do.
So, and why is that important, Jim? I wonder if you understand the importance of that.
That's a good question.
Okay.
I assume you're setting me up here.
I am setting you
okay,
up.
good.
Yep.
I will say this. I have a story about my own situation, but you go ahead first.
Okay, Greg, any idea why it's important to have that FM chip in your phone?
No idea.
Okay. So basically, I mean, you still have to have an app to drive this, right? But apps take a lot of power.
Yes.
You know, and some apps take a lot more power than others. Having that chip in your phone means that it doesn't have to be emergency situations, but generally speaking, you'll get 3 to 10 times more life out of your battery if you're just using the FM chip than if you were using an app to listen to the same radio station. Okay, 3 to 10 times more. So if you're caught out in an emergency situation where you need to know what's going on with the weather or whatever, don't use an app to listen to the radio.
Yeah.
Use the actual radio one that you have on the phone itself. So big deal. It really is a big deal. So
now let me tell you, if I may,
absolutely.
my situation, because I actually tried to call and get them to activate the FM chip, and they wouldn't do it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I have Verizon, and I'm not booting on Horizon because I generally like the service they get. But when I called them about it, they said for some reason they said no, we can't do that.
That's amazing.
Standard won't do it.
I think there is a workaround to that. So maybe
if you can find that out for me.
I will do that because I think there's an app I think that you can actually download that'll activate your chip without the permission of your.
I also like the idea of having it, like you say, it saves your battery. So in an emergency situation, it'd be a nice option to have.
Well, and even if you're just out for a walk and you want to listen to your local station, why do you have to go through this thing of going through an app or whatever when you can just and that way you don't have to charge your.
Why do I have to stream a station?
Yeah, that's
the
exactly
tower
right.
is. I can see the tower within line of sight, down there in St. George's.
And that's another valid point, Jim, is that when you're streaming it, you're using up your data plan. Mm-hmm. You got 3 gigs or 5 gigs a month or whatever. You start streaming audio, that takes a lot out of that, right?
It does.
When you use the FM chip. part of it, you don't have to worry about that at all. So Greg, you have some great apps that I think if we don't talk about them now, we're not going to get to. So you have some great.
Yeah, I
favorite apps.
just want to plug some. One at a national scale, I fly a lot. Delta's app. It meets a lot of my needs. It manages my Sky Miles. It helps me on flights. It tells me what to do. I'm really impressed. As a customer, it's my favorite app because it solves my problems when there's flight delays, those types of things. So really impressed.
So before you go on, because we do have a couple minutes yet, will you purposely fly Delta more simply because you think they have a superior app?
Yeah, probably because I had a flight delayed. It told me what I needed to do, and because of my flight status, it ties into my flight or my mileage status. So absolutely, it's a combination of flight service, like on the flight, but also the offline experience makes it incredibly helpful. I'm really impressed on how Delta uses technology, and it's definitely increased my desire to only fly Delta. I literally pay hundreds of dollars or more for a flight.
That was my next
question.
question.
Because I only look Delta.
So that is so important to you that you will actually pay a premium price just to be on there.
Yeah,
because
I have into my contracts when I do out-of-town engagements with clients, I only fly Delta.
Wow, that's impressive. I'll have to check out the Delta app. I think I've used it a couple times, but I just because I'm about ready to fly Delta and I'll put the app on it, I just don't go to that level of understanding the app. So very interesting.
So another one I want to highlight is it's North Dakota State University's app. I was at the Bison football game, so the Bisons are in the playoffs, played on ESPN on Saturday, and as I walked into the opening, the big energy, the excitement come out. Yep. All of a sudden, I walked into the stands, and I haven't been to a home game for a while, and there's just this flickering of yellow and green coming out of people's phones. And I was like, what the heck? Yeah. It's the app. As part of the app, you go into NDSU's app and you hit strobe, and it just does green and yellow. And it adds to the experience. And you see how technology is incorporating into the audio experience. The crowd comes together to do it. It was really, really neat.
That's pretty
simple,
cool.
But really high impact.
Do they just announce, to put your phones on strobe, or people just do
I just think it's part of the culture now, and so many people are using that app when they travel. This is the app that helps people know where everybody's traveling to on their road to Frisco when they've gone to the last 5 national championships. This app has been featured on ESPN several times. Yes. But it's a cultural phenomenon, and what's happened with the tribe, similar to Star Wars and NDSU athletics, they're very similar. People are into this.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
And then the third one is an education app, Flipgrid, which allows students to respond to questions on their phone. And so a teacher poses a video, does a little question, and then students can respond back on Flipgrid. And basically, I've been impressed with that app because it's giving student voice. I was, believe it or not, somebody that was shy in school, never really wanted to answer a question. And I hung out with a lot of the introverts. And so the introverts, we would have private discussions, but we didn't want to have classroom discussions. And so it's an online technique. It was developed by a professor, Charlie Miller, at University of Minnesota, and now it's being used in classrooms all across the country. Check it out, Flipgrid.
That's pretty cool. Very, very cool.
When I was in grad school, we had Canvas, which did a lot of the same things. A very good feature. That's what they use at Mary now.
Okay. Very interesting. So,
and you, Marlo, favorite app?
My favorite app has to be Evernote. I love Evernote. My whole life, I hate to say this, but my whole life is in Evernote because this conversation we're having today, I have notes for the show in Evernote. When you and I talk, if you ever notice, I'm sitting tapping on my computer. I can't do it on my phone. I just hate typing on my phone yet. But if I have my computer open up in front of you and I'm taking notes, that's where I'm at. I'm in Evernote because there's going to be some time a year from now I'm going to be like, man, Greg and I were talking about that one time, and I can just go boom, 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 and there it is.
Wow.
It's just amazing to me. So the last 3 years, all of my stuff, anything that I've had important conversations with or whatever is there. So, I don't trust my mental capability anymore to recall conversations. I don't think anybody really can recall everything. I shouldn't say that. Some people can. But I'm not at that level. So I trust my technology to do that for me, I guess. So that's what I like.
And then can I throw one other question to the table? 15 years from now, what is the next type of conversation we're going to have as it relates to this? We were talking earlier, I think 15 years ago it had been what website? Website wars.
Yes.
Now we're on app wars.
Yes.
15 years from now, what's the conversation?
I think it's going to be voice recognition. I think everything we do 15 years from now, you look at how Amazon has taken Alexa right now. I own 7 dots. I have an Alexa, the regular unit, and Jim's laughing at me. Now I have 6 other dots in my house. Those are the small units, right? Yeah, and I can walk into a room and say, Alexa, what's the temperature outside? And soon I will have it, Alexa, turn my lights on medium. Alexa, turn the temperature to 70 degrees. I'm incorporating all this stuff into my house right now. I think in the future you're going to be talking to your car that way. Yeah. You're going to be coming into a building and you're just going to say, whatever that is, what room is Jim Walsh in? And it's going to come back and say Jim is in room 307. I think it's going to be Star Trek-ish in a way. That's what you're going to say. Or the Jetsons.
We are the Jetsons.
We are the Jetsons.
Become the Jetsons.
Yes, yeah. How about you? What do you think?
I think it's going to be drones. I think it's how are you using your drones? Is your drone taking your dog to the vet? Is your drone taking? Is your drone picking up your mail? I think it's going to be how we're using drones.
Okay, interesting. Jim, what do you think in 15 years?
I like the drone thing. I'm trying to imagine, though, getting my cat to sit still and be picked up by a drone. I don't know how well that would work.
It's like those It's like those games in the pizza shop. It'll be like a claw coming down and gently
but
wrapping
they never
it.
work.
But I see your cat or dog being taken for a walk with a drone.
There's an idea.
Just walk and have the leash right on the drone, and the drone just walks around.
There, take Puffy for a walk.
That's right.
There you go.
See it already. So, all right. Well, gentlemen, what a great show. Been a pleasure, Craig.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for giving me an insight into the future. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for being in Bismarck today. Jim, pleasure as always.
Likewise.
I guess we'll see you next week.